Actually got to interact with whoever it is that's trying to come through to the physical. These movies that are like the church puts out, The Exorcist and stuff like that. I used to never think that those things were possible, but with what we are experiencing here, I can see where the movies get their idea. Anyways, so she went into a trance and she got the pokes like I talked about last time, and I tried to keep her awake. She got real drowsy and tried to keep her awake, and I just couldn't do it. She passed out, but then came to again, but it wasn't her, it was somebody else, and we had a little bit of a fight. There was no blows thrown, but they gripped they took her hands behind her back and held them, and I couldn't get them apart. A very strong grip, but they looked at me, I looked at them, and I recognized right away that it was not Zainab that I was looking at. And I was very sincere with myself and what was happening in the situation, and telepathically I said, "Get out." I was very angry, but there was nothing that I could realistically do with my anger, so I just let that be. But I did say, "Get out." And a moment later, her body started to convulse, and she came to, immediately started crying. I asked her what she saw, and she said that they had her in a cage, and that they were beating her through the cage. And I said, "Well, what else happened?" And she said there was a ring of women dancing around with torches, dancing around her cage with torches. And she called for the guides, and it was about that time that she woke up. So I've been looking at the real side myself to see what's going on with this. And right after her experience, I was in a real sad experience with the original cast of the Star Trek The Next Generation, right? We're talking Jean-Luc Picard and Worf and Data and all them. And they were in the production phase of a new Star Trek movie. And Zainab and I were there. We were sort of like extras while at the same time watching the production, watching them film it. And the place was set. It was at the guy, he used to be a friend of mine. It was at his house. He and his wife are big fans of Star Trek, and he has all sorts of memorabilia, so the crew decided to film it at his house. He was actually in the movie, had a role, but Zainab and I took a tour. We were watching the filmmakers do their thing. We went into a restroom. Neither of us used the facilities, but the Captain Picard character, he came into the restroom and he went into the stall, and then she disappeared. I couldn't see her. I recognized myself doing a spin. I was spinning in the restroom, kind of like doing a 360 degree look, trying to see everything that was going on in there, and then that's when I noticed she was gone. I walked out of there back into the original location that we had been in, and I sat down next to her. She was there watching the production. So there were a lot of little things that gave me the idea that what's going on with her is this extraterrestrial type race that she has been communicating with for a very long time, probably mostly unconsciously. And I say that because she does artwork. She draws these faces, and one of the faces is what I actually saw one night, right in front of me. And so I've got this inclination that she thinks that she's drawing these faces just because they're cool or whatever. But in my perception, it's an actual society, and they're actually working through her. Now, this is just a theory, but with the whole Star Trek thing, the next generation, and going where no man's gone before, all that marketing ploy stuff, is that's what's happening with her. But it's very intense, these experiences, and I'm glad to have the awareness to handle them without getting into the weird church ideas or getting physically violent. So that's what we're going through. She's not here right now. She went to class, so it's just me for the moment.
Is that it, Chris? Yeah, it's good you have the awareness for this. It's exceptional. Good for you, because again, everybody has ties to something, and again, we've all come through many lifetimes and different things, and we've all been on different planets and what have you. We haven't just been on the Earth. We've been all around the place. It's just really amazing where we've been, and we end up on the Earth here. It's almost like we've, toured the universes, kind of like in Star Trek. And these are kind of memories many times. I would say that's why many people like these things, because they've done these things. But at a certain point, these are kind of like the rest points in eternity that are talked about. At a certain point, we just wanted like a regular life. We went through the Big Bang and all this stuff. And it's like, like when the first Men in Black came out, and the beginning of the movie where Tommy Lee Jones is there with the older guy, and the older guy says, I just want to just look at the stars. Basically he's looking at the stars. He goes, look at the stars. And so Tommy Lee Jones is realizing, that he's about done. And, at a certain point, Tommy Lee Jones, after he went through all the alien stuff in the movie, it's like, I just want to look at the stars. And then there's Will Smith giving him the zap. So, we've went through many, many lifetimes of these things and adventures and, dastardly situations, and just like her, and, being kidnapped, killed, being prisoners. I would say that those are, recalls from the past where they've had her in those situations, and those emotional ties are still there. And so it becomes very, very interesting what we've went through. And so, but as you recognize this, as you learn to recognize these things, then it becomes so. And it's very interesting, too, that while you were on the set there, and you'll see this many times, you're looking for the bathroom. Again, that's marking your spot, and you guys didn't go to the bathroom there. In other words, the idea is there. In other words, this is something familiar to you, and it's like, well, it's almost like it's on an automatic thing. Well, this is part of me. I want to be part of this. But then you realize, no, I don't, and you're not going to the bathroom there because you don't want to be part of it. In other words, returning there again. It's just like animals when they're out there. When I see them, people with their animals and their dogs, what do? They go back to the same spot again, and the owner will say, oh, this is his favorite spot. This is my dog's favorite spot. He always whizzes on this spot here. And so returning to that same area, but you notice that you didn't go to the bathroom. And so these characters or whatever that are familiar, you're in her adventure too. And it's actually, it's very strong. It's because she's very aware. That's just really how it is. Yeah, just like in the movie The Exorcist or whatever, these people are very aware. And it's not a matter of exorcism. It's a matter of recognizing what's taking place. And so that's the whole idea. And once you do that, what's the idea? It's like anywhere. It's like if you've been a drinker all your life and you go to a bar and, once in a while there's fights in there, but eventually, you're just tired of it. What do? You leave. You just go. You just don't go back. And so that's the whole idea. You wake up and it's like, you know what? I'm not going back there anymore. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go somewhere else and start a new life. And so it's really making a decision. It's really waking up to what's going on. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that those who she was tied with, they would come after her. And this is what's taking place too. because some of these people, as to what we're doing, we're out there in the public, just like Tanya's experience here. What we're doing is exposing them. They don't like that. They don't want to be exposed, you see? So, yeah, it's a catch-22 to wake up in creation. There's a lot to it. And it takes a while to understand, but you see, as we have these groups and share this, then you have a better understanding, because otherwise you're in such an unconscious state, you have no idea. There's so many layers to it. It's almost like you never get out of it. But this is through the activity, through doing this, you're breaking through this. Very important, and waking up to where eventually that you're not the effect of any of this anymore. So that's cool, Chris. Yeah, that's really cool. And you have great experiences. Was there more, or did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, whoever this entity is that came through, this isn't the first time. There's been a lot of little things, but they came through, and we keep a glass jug of water next to the bed, and it's cold. It stays cold. It stays, whatever, room temperature. Anyways, the glass seems a lot colder than what it is. All right, so we'll play around with each other, and we'll put it on each other's back, and it's like cold ice. It's like, oh, you get a reaction. She shivers. We laugh. Haha, it's funny. Well, in this situation, when this person, entity, being, whoever it was, they wouldn't identify themselves. I touched them with this glass bottle of water, this glass jug of water, and there was no reaction. And then they said, it's not even cold. And so then I touched the flesh, the skin where I had put it, and the skin was cold and goosebumpy. And I said, well, it feels cold to me. Just trying to be sarcastic to get a reaction. And that's when they looked at me, and there was hatred in her eyes. But there was hatred. I could feel it radiating at me. And another thing, later on in the morning, after she had come to and we'd actually gotten a good night's sleep after that, I wake up and I realize that there is fingerprint indentations on my chest where they had touched me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is just too far out. This is just like in a movie. They were red, kind of like puffed up fingerprints, like I sort of been burned, and then they disappeared. So this is a very interesting thing. I've been writing it all down. Everything that we go through, I've been writing it down. I considered like what you've been through and what Paul went through and all the different stuff that you guys have experienced. I'm like, I wonder if they've gone through anything like this, or if this is like my unique adventure, So I've gone through all sorts of different considerations, like walking away. Do I just walk away from her? Do I, what do I do? But I've decided that I'm gonna stick it out just to see what happens. So I don't feel that anyone else out there is equipped or has the awareness to get through these things and to get her through these things. So I'm taking it on. I'm sticking to it. But that's it for that. Yeah.
Well, what else you got to do? So the thing is that, myself, I'm always curious as to see how these things will come out. That's why I do different adventures and whatever, and it's, sometimes people will say, well, there's nothing there or whatever, but I just want to go through it to see what will happen, right or wrong, or etc., because, again, it all adds to it. You can go down a thousand dead ends, but through that, eventually you get to the right place, but it took all that to get there, because little by little you get a better understanding of things. So that's pretty hairy-carry there. So again, you have she has some connections, and the past catches up with you. In other words, I just wrote this group, who are your relatives, and that is that in the physical here, we have these ideas of things, but realistically, everybody has their own experiences and worlds, and just like what you're experiencing here, all of a sudden these things start to show up. And so you could be like, let's say, the happy couple, like you see on TV or something in the sitcoms, and all of a sudden, and their life seems to be okay. It's pretty normal, and you have all your duh friends, and you do these funny little duh things every day. Well, here in real life, things are happening, and it's almost like, well, this shouldn't be happening because this doesn't fit in with my social structure. But again, you really don't know your relation to your relatives, and she's got, she's from a family where they have particular things and rituals and, religions, etc. Every country of the world, you look at all the things that are going on in this world, and it's just amazing. But people don't see who they're tied to realistically. And as you become more aware, as you start opening these things up, the new you does that. It opens things up, opens up all these inner doors. Things start to happen. When the doors are closed on the real side, not much is happening. It's pretty just mundane. It's it's life to life, business to business every day. It's pretty much most people are one-dimensional. This is where for them it's hard for them to see anything else. And then again, some of them are aware enough to realize that, oh, gee, if I start to move towards this or get involved, doors are going to open up, and I'm going to have to deal with things. And this is really where we're at. We're like in the Men in Black movie. Anything can happen. It's just how it is. And so as people open the doors from the real side, things start to appear. The past starts to show up, connections, relatives, etc. It all starts to show up. And just like that movie, the original one, The Heartbreak Kid, all of a sudden it's like, well, what did I marry here? This is why I wrote about the marriage thing, and some people get upset because they have emotional attachments to these ideas. It's really kind of a crack up. And just like Val's experience there, well, where's the happiness and compassion? It's like people go right to their emotional body, they go right to the astral body, and they want confirmation. And it's, how can you tell adults, like, you're already doing that. Don't you have a life of your own? And say that becomes like, well, how dare you say that? You're very rude, or this is, you're disgusting. It's like, well, realistically, why are you asking me the question? Is it that you don't have compassion in your life? Oh, you're really talking about yourself, aren't you? And so, again, it becomes a rather humorous situation. And, basically it's like, okay, you can leave now. But, this is our adventure. This is really what it is. I love it myself. This is where I love the hate and the confrontation, because, basically while you're in creation, this is what you get. Yes. For those people that are on the La La Land spiritual path, it's like, oh, everything is love, and we're to love everybody. Yeah, well, it's not. They're not really seeing it. They're in their one-dimensional emotional position, physical, astral, and yeah, see, the dark side likes that. They like them to be duh. They like them to look for the love. This is where the love idea is so marketed, but it's not love. It's just emotional attachment to ideas is what it is. But they don't see it that way. And so it's a distortion, and that's marketed. And the deceptors that rule the planet, they like people to be like that, and they like them to actually resist and fight you. That's what you're getting. You're getting these, this resistance is what you're getting. And within their tribe or whatever, we're within these relationships, because there's no coincidence. It's not just anybody off the street doing this. This is her. Either her relatives or her relationships or whatever. Basically, the relatives, it's like, well, you don't love us anymore. We want you back. And just like you see this in the movies where, maybe the girl has been swept off her feet by a guy, but the family's after them. It's like, we want our daughter back, and you hypnotized her, you kidnapped her. But the daughter's trying to explain, no, I love this man. I'm going with him. It's like, no, you don't. You don't love him. You love us. And that's what you're going through. Oh, yeah. Yeah, people love their emotional attachments. This is the world of emotional attachments here, physical, astral. And it's called love. It's not. It's nonsense. And this is where you really have this understanding. And like the sun shining, when you really understand the position of the sun as a representative of the all is, and then eventually you understand the is, boy, you don't want any of this stuff. That's why the guys stand back. It's like, whoa, we don't want to get involved in this. I remember one time when I was with my girlfriend Chris, and she was sitting on my lap in her house, and all of a sudden her husband walks in. All of a sudden he walked in really fast. We thought he was at work. And it was really a surprise, so I got up. I was a little embarrassed, and then I just said, well, I'll see you later. And I said, we were just discussing things, etc. I kind of made it up. And later on, the boy said, well, we're sure glad it wasn't us. That's just how it is. But you're going through the real poltergeist thing there, young man. Wow. Yeah, you can make your own movie. Kelsey, she'll do it with you. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. If I live.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. I whatever it is, I've had things myself. I just go with it. This is part of the adventure. It's like you don't look for the guide so much. You can figure it out. You can handle it, and it becomes very, very interesting. And actually, sometimes the bad guys become the good guys. You never know. I always test them to see if they'll change sides. Like in that movie, I don't know if you saw it, Prisoner of Zenda or Zanzibar, whatever, with Peter Sellers, where he plays two roles. And there's one part in there where the bad guy is fighting him. Then all of a sudden the bad guy realizes that he's losing because his army is failing. And then all of a sudden he starts fighting, Peter Sellers' enemies, and Peter Sellers goes, well, what are you doing? He goes, I'm changing sides. And I thought, oh, that's great. Like I'm changing sides. Just like instantly he does it. He starts fighting his enemies. So it's and it can happen like that. It's just attitude. Everything is attitude. It's so simple. It's not this long, drawn-out process that we've gone through with so many things like you see in the business world. The business world is mainly deception. It's based on deception. Things are very simple. Buy and sell, that's it. You don't have to go through this long process where you need lawyers and contracts, and, we have to do step one, step two, or what. It's like, let's just get it done. That's how I did my business. I didn't mess around. There's no process to it. Lots of times people do that so that they can, control it in a certain way, charge more money, just do all these funny things, and really it's not that at all. It's so much of the business world is so deceptive, and it doesn't have to be that way. So as we become more aware, this is where we have our own position and our own adventure, because we're living life, and the best part is to recognize the is. It's very important, very, very important overall. Otherwise, you really don't have anything. You're just going to keep going through this nonsense and having to deal with it. And this is where, after many lifetimes, dealing with the space people and, in flying saucers and flying here and there, and basically it's all battles. That's really what it is. You have technology, and all this stuff is distortion. So it all becomes battles and takeovers. That's what it is. There's no glory to it. And people look at something like Star Trek or whatever, but it's all battles, and it's not really awareness. It's so one-dimensional, and it's really, as you look at the old Star Trek series, the first ones, it's like when you first saw them. I remember when I first saw them. Oh wow, this is a big deal. But now when you look at them, you see how dull and baby brain they are, and how fake everything in it is. You're really seeing it now. It's not the same view, is it? No. Not at all. So, you got quite an adventure there, Sonny. Let's see if you survive. You will. You're the Marine.
Yeah, I got something up my sleeve, so I'll let you know.
Well, you should have Kelsey there filming it in the bear outfit, yes. Yes. she'll make a talking book. You know, she'll do all these things. She'll just spread it around. Sweetheart, yes, sense of sweetheart. It's just terrific. I think this is all terrific, the experiences everybody's having. We're so fortunate to be aware of this. Look at the world. The world's dumb. You know, they've got nothing. They really don't. And so we're becoming more aware. We supersede this, and we can step out of this in creation. We'll be fine. Yeah, and we'll really have fun. Yeah, more so than here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is deadbeat zone. Yeah, we got to deal with it for now.